I'm going to talk about StorPool's role in the OnApp ecosystem. So if you have an OnApp cloud, how does StorPool play into that, and how do we make your OnApp cloud even better? So first of all, some introduction to StorPool, because I'm sure most of you have never heard of us, and it's necessary. So it's a scale-out block storage system, which is software defined, meaning we don't sell you a box. We work on standard x86 servers that you get from your preferred supplier. So in a way, it's like a SAN or an all-flash array, but better in many ways. So it runs on your servers in your data center. It comes with a full service package from StorPool, so from through all the stages of your project. So from planning to deployment to upgrades to continuous monitoring and of your system. It's used mostly by public and private clouds, and it's used mostly in modern IT stacks. So in situations where there is automation, orchestration, scalability, and these are kind of the most important properties of the clouds that we play in. And it's also used mostly for NVMe storage, but we also support hard drive storage and even slower tiers of performance. Next slide, please. So why do our customers choose StorPool? First of all, it's because of performance and efficiency. In the OnApp ecosystem, obviously, they choose us because of our good integration with OnApp. So it's not just a SAN for OnApp. It's a storage system which is deeply integrated, and that gives you a number of advantages that I'm going to talk about in the next slides. And it also gives you support for multiple use cases and multiple stacks from the same storage system. So if you have a StorPool storage system, you could attach that to your OnApp cloud, as well as use that for, say, bare metal servers, or use that for your VMware infrastructure, and kind of support multiple use cases from it. Because it's software defined, it gives you some independence from hardware. So things like in-service upgrades and maintenance, and retiring old servers, bringing a new generation of servers in the environment. Gives you a lot of visibility into the behavior, the performance of the storage layer. It has snapshot-based backups, and it comes with kind of the quality and support you would expect from a company that specializes in doing storage. So we focus on the storage layer, and we make that extremely good. That's our role. Next slide, please. A bit on how it works. So on this diagram, on the bottom, you can see 3 storage nodes. In these storage nodes, you have SSDs or hard drives. So we work with both kinds of media. You have a redundant Ethernet network in the middle. And on the top, you have a number of hypervisor nodes. And these would be KVM hypervisors in this case. On each one of them, we have the StorPool block device client, and that exposes block devices to virtual machines. And kind of the first difference between a SAN, a regular SAN, and StorPool is that because of our integration with OnApp, you get a separate virtual disk for each, a separate volume in StorPool for each virtual disk. Kind of this architecture can be deployed as a standalone storage cluster. It can also be deployed hyper-converged. So you have some flexibility and there are some advantages and disadvantages to doing it one way or the other. And in terms of preference of our existing customers, it's about 50-50 split. So some deployed hyper-converged, some deployed a standalone storage system. Next slide, please. And out of the same storage cluster, so here on the bottom, we've added connecting to VMware and Hyper-V hypervisors from the same StorPool storage cluster, which gives you this idea of you are able to support multiple use cases from one system. Next slide, please. So how it works, so you have storage nodes, and in them you have disks, which are SSDs or hard drives. One of kind of the key advantages of StorPool is effective pooling of capacity and performance. So if you have a number of disks in a number of servers, we make them behave as one large pool of space and performance. So you share this large performance between all of your virtual machines. And then, so the top part of the diagram is kind of the physical view, so storage nodes and disks and pools. And the bottom side of the diagram is more of the logical side of things. So in a storage pool, which corresponds to an OnApp data store, you have volumes and snapshots, and you can create thousands of volumes, and each volume corresponds to a virtual disk. And for each volume, you could keep a number of snapshots, right? Next slide, please. So in terms of OnApp integration, something very similar to the previous diagram we had. You have the OnApp controller on the top, a management network, OnApp hypervisors in the middle. In each one of them, you have virtual machines that use StorPool, the StorPool client, which is a block device driver, basically, a redundant storage network, and then a number of servers. So there are two aspects to the integration. One is how do virtual machines pass storage operations to StorPool, how are storage operations processed. And the other is this is the data plane, and the other side of the integration is the control plane. How do we make, how does creating volumes, deleting volumes, resizing volumes, etc. work? So you don't need to go and type commands in a CLI, you just work through the OnApp user interface or API, and StorPool just attaches to that in the background. So it's kind of a API-driven orchestrated system. Next slide, please. So with the StorPool OnApp integration, you can think of it as it gives you the same experience as OnApp using LVM on a SAN with the following benefits. So first of all, it's not a large LUN which will be managed by the SAN. You get a separate StorPool volume for each virtual disk, and this gives you both very good visibility in terms of performance metrics and investigating performance issues or things like that. But it also gives you kind of control of these storage resources, of these provisioned storage resources from the storage system, which is a lot better situation than just seeing like multi-terabyte LUN in the storage system, which is what you get with the SAN. And you get accelerated and features and optional extras, things like in a StorPool storage cluster attached to OnApp, you could have multiple OnApp data stores, so multiple pools. You could have an SSD pool and a hard drive pool. And then in OnApp, if you move a virtual disk from one of these pools to another, this would happen instantaneously rather than having to read the data from the storage system and then write it back. We do optionally, again, snapshots on activation. So every time you start a virtual machine, you get another snapshot of its virtual disks. We have the ability of connecting an OnApp backup server directly to the StorPool storage system. So you don't need to kind of, in this way, you remove the hypervisors from the backup function in OnApp, meaning reading the data for the backup doesn't need to be routed through the hypervisor, and this frees up some resources on the hypervisors. And we also have this optionally, when it says optionally, it means you can turn it off or on depending on your use case. Optionally, you can switch OnApp backups from being files on a backup server to being snapshots in StorPool, which for some use cases is the preferred way of keeping backups. Next slide, please. And I think the main reason, the main benefits of using StorPool with OnApp are the same as the benefits of using StorPool, which is effective pooling of capacity and performance, which gives you kind of a lot of flexibility in terms of, say, capacity of drives and hardware refresh cycles, things like that. It's highly available. It gives you a lot of performance, and it's not just about kind of megabytes per second and IOPS. It's mostly about having low latency, which is extremely important for application performance and especially databases. So we have this observation that if you run an application on a low latency storage system like StorPool, it just runs faster, even on the same amount of CPU and memory. You get detailed metrics and analytics, support for multiple use cases from the same storage system, and it's a full lifecycle service, meaning from planning through to monitoring and upgrades. Next slide, please. So these are some screenshots on the kind of metrics you have access to. So this is top left is the simple stuff. Basic monitoring, are there any issues at the moment or not, and the available space in a particular cluster. And then on the bottom left, you have like a performance status overview, list of volumes and list of disks, and kind of physical view, logical view on the top right. And on the bottom right, you have IOPS and megabytes per second and latency metrics for an individual. So not this one, I have it on the next slide, please. So you have access to, with StorPool, you have metrics such as IOPS per second, IOPS and latency metrics for each individual virtual disk, which enables you as a service provider to answer questions like, so a customer opens a ticket and they say something is slow in my VM, and in this way you can quickly rule out if it's slow because storage is slow or it's slow for some other reason.